At 19, Elara Valemont entered Blackthorn Crown Academy's winter ballroom, wearing the silver crest her family had carried for nearly 2 centuries. By midnight, her fiancé had taken the crest, her council seats, and the future she thought they were building together. 6 days later, Cassian Rowe stood before the Academy's ancient black mirror with one hand on the founder's charter. For the first time since betraying her, he looked afraid. Elara stood below the council platform without a title, without a family sash, and without anyone powerful enough to rescue her. "Repeat the oath," she said. Cassian's fingers tightened over the charter. "If I refuse, then everyone here will know why." The black mirror behind him began to shine, but 6 days earlier, Cassian had believed Elara would never survive long enough to bring him there. Blackthorn Crown was not an ordinary academy. Its towers rose from a mountain ridge above the clouds. Marble bridges connected private residence halls. Founder portraits watched from candlelit corridors, and every student carried a family name that could open courts, banks, ministries, or royal households. The academy did not simply educate the powerful. It taught their children how to remain powerful. The Valemont family had founded Blackthorn Crown almost 200 years earlier. Their name was carved above the central library. Their silver crest appeared on the council seal, and 3 of the academy's 9 governing seats belonged permanently to their bloodline Elara had been raised to inherit. Them. She had also been raised to believe Cassian Rowe would stand beside her. Cassian came from an old aristocratic family whose fortune was quietly collapsing. He was intelligent, charming, and ambitious enough to make important people mistake hunger for leadership. When Elara's father became seriously ill during her final year, Cassian offered to help manage the Valemont family's academy. Responsibilities. Elara trusted him. She introduced him to council members. Her father funded his leadership program. Her grandfather allowed him to deliver reports under the Valemont crest. Elara believed they were learning how to lead. Together, Cassian was learning how much of her life he could control before she noticed. On the night of their formal engagement announcement, Elara descended the grand ballroom staircase expecting to find him waiting beneath the silver Valemont banner. He was there. So was Isolde Marin. The chancellor's daughter. Isolde wore a pale, champagne gown and the white ceremonial sash that had been measured for Elara. Cassian stood beside her with one hand resting behind her back. The room became silent before Elara reached the final step. Cassian raised his glass. "The Valemont family has always represented strength," he announced. "But strength cannot survive under an heir who abandons her responsibilities." Whispers moved through the ballroom. Elara stared at him. "Cassian," he continued as though she had not spoken. "While Lord Valemont has been ill, I have protected the family's academy interests, managed its council work, and prevented serious financial instability." Every sentence was constructed from a fragment of truth. He had managed those responsibilities because Elara had authorized him to deliver reports while she cared for her father. Cassian lifted a document bearing her signature, appeared to grant him temporary control of all 3 Valemont council seats. Elara felt the room tilt around her. She remembered the night she had signed the original authorization, 3 pages, permission to deliver, reports, nothing more. The document in Cassian's hand contained 4. "Yupon changed it," she said. His expression did not move. "My engagement to Elara can no longer continue. Blackthorn Crown requires stability, and the Valemont legacy requires a guardian capable of protecting it." Isolde stepped closer to him. Her father, Chancellor Marin, rose from the council platform. Cassian Rowe has requested formal recognition as acting guardian of the Valemont Academy Authority. The council will review the transfer at the end of the week. Elara looked toward the men and women. Her family had supported for generations. Not one defended her. Cassian had not chosen the ballroom merely to humiliate her. He had chosen it because public silence looked like agreement. Elara walked toward him. Give me the original documents. Cassian lowered his voice so only she could hear. You were born with everything. You never learned the most important rule of power. Elara stopped. What rule? People do not remain loyal to whoever deserves them. They remain loyal to whoever is useful. Her hand struck his face before she could stop herself. Gasps broke across the ballroom. Phones rose immediately. Cassian slowly turned back toward her. Then he smiled, not because she had hurt him, because she had given him the image he needed. By sunrise, every Academy account showed the same edited clip. Elara Valemont attacking the man who had supposedly saved her sick father's legacy. The forged documents did not appear. Cassian's whisper had not been recorded. Only the slap remained. The following morning, Elara was summoned to the council wing. An administrator removed the silver crest from her uniform. Her access to the family offices was suspended. Her private residence suite was reassigned to Isolde, and Elara was moved into the neglected Eastern dormitory, where scholarship students and disciplinary transfers lived beside broken radiators and leaking windows. Cassian controlled the Academy newspaper, the prefect council, and the communications office responsible. For external family messages, Elara tried to contact her grandfather. Her calls were redirected. She sent messages to her father's medical residence. They disappeared. By the second day, Cassian's version of the story had become official truth. Elara had neglected her duties. Cassian had rescued the family. She had attacked him out of jealousy after discovering his new relationship with Isolde. The cruelest part was not that people believed him. It was how quickly they wanted to. Students who had once competed for invitations to Elara's table avoided her in the dining hall. Faculty, members who had praised her leadership now spoke to her with careful distance. Her family name was still carved into the academy walls, but without access, authority, or allies, it had become nothing more than decoration. That evening, Elara sat at the old wooden desk in her new dormitory room while cold air entered through the window frame. A student from the room across the corridor knocked and asked whether Elara knew when the heating fund would be restored. Elara did not understand the question. The Eastern residence repair budget was frozen last month, the student explained. So were several meal grants. They said the Valemont office redirected the money into a leadership project. Elara looked toward the iron radiator. It was completely cold. Cassian had told the council he had prevented financial instability. Instead, he had taken money from students who had no family name powerful enough to protest. Before Elara could ask more, someone knocked on her open door. Lucian Ashbourne stood in the corridor holding a cardboard box. He was 20, a final-year student from one of the few families wealthy enough to oppose the Valemonts without fearing retaliation, and Elara had spent 3 years competing for the Academy's highest rank. Lucian was observant, controlled, and irritatingly difficult to impress. Cassian despised him. "Your belongings were left outside the council chamber," Lucian said. The box contained Elara's books, a framed photograph of her father, and the clothes removed from her former suite. "You came here to enjoy the view?" she asked. "I saw Cassian celebrating this morning. Once was enough." Elara took the box. Lucian did not leave. The documents were forged. Her grip tightened around the cardboard. "You know that? I watched you sign the originals." Months earlier, Lucian had been waiting outside Lord Valemont's office for a separate council meeting. Through the open door, he had seen Elara sign the authorization. The original contained 3 pages, he said. Cassian showed 4. Then testify. I already offered. Hope rose in her chest. Lucian continued before it could settle. Chancellor Marin rejected my statement. He called it retaliation, from a political rival. Elara looked away. Then, you cannot help me, not by asking powerful men to admit they were fooled. She looked back at him. Lucian placed the 3-page stack from his memory beside 4 blank sheets on her desk. You are still thinking like an innocent person, he said. And what should I think like? Someone trying to win. After curfew, Lucien led Elara beneath the Valemont library, behind a locked iron gate. A narrow staircase descended into the original founder's archive. The chamber had been abandoned when Blackthorn Crown modernized its records. Ancient ledgers filled iron shelves. Family seals rested inside glass cases. At the far end of the circular room stood a tall black mirror surrounded by sculpted silver branches. The mirror reflected nothing. Elara recognized it from a story her grandmother had once told her, the sign. Oath glass. Lucian brushed dust from the inscription beneath it. The First Academy Council had created the mirror to prevent any family from acquiring authority through false promises. The oath glass did not replay the past. It could not search memories or expose ordinary lies. Its power was narrower. When someone willingly spoke a formal oath before it, the mirror revealed the true intention beneath that oath in the speaker's own voice. If a person swore to protect the Academy while secretly planning to exploit it, the spoken promise and the hidden intention would both be heard. The mirror did not prove what someone had already done. It proved why they were seeking power now. Lucian found the rule governing disputed transfers of founding authority. Any person claiming a founder's seat had to repeat the original transfer oath before the council, if formally challenged by the rightful heir. The wording could not be altered. The claimant had to swear that the authority had been received freely, without deception, and had never been used for personal gain. Cassian would fail before the first sentence ended. Elara reached toward the carved rule. Then we bring the mirror to the hearing. No, Lucian said. Marin would refuse. He cannot ignore a founder's law. He can bury it. He controls the council agenda, the archive staff, and the modern rulebook. If you request the oath glass, he will declare the old procedure obsolete. Elara looked at the black mirror. Then Cassian has to request the founder's law himself. Lucien turned toward her. For the first time that night, he smiled. Not warmly, approvingly. They searched the remaining shelves. A registration ledger confirmed that Elara's authorization had been filed as a 3-page courier agreement. It did not contain the signed pages, but it recorded the document length, purpose, date, and seal sequence. On another shelf, they found transfer records from the Valemont Student Support Fund. Large payments had been redirected into a new leadership foundation, controlled by Chancellor Marin da Isolda's foundation. Cassian had not simply stolen Elara's council authority. He had been selling access to it. Lucian began photographing the ledger pages. A sound moved above them. The iron gate closed. Cassian stepped from the staircase shadows. You should have remained in your room, he said. 2 Academy security officers stood behind him. Elara moved in front of the open financial ledger. Cassian's gaze dropped to it. You noticed the missing key? Lucian said. I noticed Elara pretending to be defeated, Cassian approached the table. He did not look angry. That was worse. "You still believe evidence matters," he said to Elara. "Evidence matters only when the people judging it are willing to lose something by accepting it." He ordered the officers to escort them upstairs. By morning, the Founders' Archive was sealed. The registration ledger was gone. The financial records had been removed. Cassian announced that Lucian had illegally entered restricted property and attempted to steal private academy documents. Lucian was suspended from the council hearing. Elara received no punishment. Cassian wanted everyone to believe Lucian had acted alone to help her. He also wanted Elara to understand that he could destroy anyone who stood beside her. Cassian summoned Lucian to the public prefect hall that afternoon. Half the senior class attended. Cassian offered to withdraw the archive charge, restore Lucian's council privileges, and guarantee his family one of the Valemont advisory positions after the transfer. Lucian needed only to state that Elara had manipulated him into entering the archive. Cassian expected him to negotiate. Lucian looked toward the watching students, then toward Elara, who stood at the back of the hall. "No." Cassian's smile tightened. "You would damage your own family for her?" "No. I would damage my family by teaching them that our name can be purchased." The room became silent. Lucian removed his prefect pin and placed it on the table before Cassian could take it. "I entered the archive willingly." Cassian leaned closer. "And Elara?" Lucian did not look at her. She was not responsible. That answer protected her. It also gave Cassian exactly what he needed to remove Lucian from the final hearing. Elara understood then that Lucian would let himself fall if it kept her standing. She hated him for it, not because it was cruel, because it resembled the kind of sacrifice she had once mistaken for love. That evening, she entered the disciplinary chamber during Lucian's hearing. "I was in the archive," she said. Lucian's expression changed. Elara continued. "I used the Founder's key. I requested Lucian's help. Any punishment applied to him also belongs to me." Cassian watched her from the council table. "You would admit to breaking Academy law?" "I would admit to my own choices." She looked at Lucian. "I will not reclaim my power by allowing another man to take my punishment." Lucian held her gaze. Something passed between them that had nothing to do with gratitude. Cassian dismissed the hearing before either of them could say more. He had expected Elara to hide behind Lucian. Instead, she had made herself more dangerous. The next morning, Elara stopped defending herself. She issued a public statement accepting the council's authority. She stopped demanding access to the archive. She told former allies she would not challenge Cassian's appointment. Then she waited in the glass-roofed conservatory. Cassian arrived before noon. "You finally understand," he said. "The council wants stability." "You were right about one thing," Elara replied. "The Valemont name should belong to whoever can protect it." Cassian studied her face. She placed a leather case on the bench between them. Inside rested the silver key to the Founder's Archive. Cassian did not touch it immediately. "You already used this, and found nothing that can survive a council vote." That was almost true. Cassian had removed the records. He believed the danger was gone. Elara continued. "My grandfather once told me the original Valemont Charter contains a permanent recognition clause. If the council confirms a guardian under the Founder's law, no later family challenge can remove him." Cassian's eyes moved toward the key. The charter existed. The permanent recognition clause did not. But ambition rarely distinguishes between truth and the version of truth it wants. If you hold the final ceremony in Founders Hall, Elara said, you can claim the transfer under the Academy's oldest authority. My grandfather will be unable to reverse it when he returns. Cassian narrowed his eyes. Why would you help me? Because when this is over, I want my father left alone. It was the kind of surrender he expected from her. Not weakness. A bargain made for family. Cassian took the key. Then he leaned closer. If this is a trap, Lucian will lose more than an academy title. Elara forced herself not to react. Cassian left the conservatory carrying the weapon she had placed in his hand. That evening, he announced that the final transfer ceremony would be held in Founders Hall under the Academy's original charter. The entire senior class would attend. Elara had guided him toward the oath glass. But Cassian was not foolish. Before the ceremony, he studied the Founders' rules. He discovered the compulsory oath, and he changed his plan. Lucien found Elara in the eastern dormitory that night. He knows about the oath. Elara looked up from the copies spread across her desk. How? He questioned the archivist. Cassian intends to use a modern guardian's pledge instead of the Founder's transfer oath. A modern pledge would allow him to promise future loyalty without claiming that Elara had freely transferred anything. The oath glass could reveal ambition, but not the forgery. Cassian could survive it. Elara looked toward the copied photographs Lucian had taken before the archive was sealed. Most were blurred. None showed the missing registration entry clearly enough to authenticate. They still had evidence of diverted funds, but without the original ledgers, Chancellor Marin could call the images fabricated. We force the old wording, Elara said. Only a formal heir's challenge can do that. Then I challenge him. Lucian's expression hardened. Under the Founder's rule, the challenge carried a price. If Cassian completed the exact oath without the oath glass exposing corrupt intent, Elara would permanently surrender all claim to the Valemont seats. You would be wagering everything, Lucian said. I already lost everything. No. You still have the right to rebuild. Elara stepped closer. Is that why you helped me? Because you thought I would eventually return to being useful? Lucian went still. The question was unfair. It was also the question Cassian had left inside her. Lucian did not answer immediately. Then he removed a folded document from his coat. It was an offer Cassian had sent to the Ashbourne family. One permanent advisory position in exchange for Lucian withdrawing his testimony. At the bottom, Lucian had written a refusal and signed it before 2 witnesses. I could tell you that I care about you, he said. But Cassian also said he loved you. He placed the refusal on the desk. So do not believe me because of what I say. Believe whatever remains after I have nothing to gain. Elara looked at the document. You could still lose your academy standing. I know. Your family will blame me. They blame everyone. It saves time. Despite herself, Elara almost smiled. Lucian's voice softened. I do not want your seats, your name, or your gratitude. I want you to leave this academy knowing that what happened to you did not make Cassian right. Elara looked at him. And if I lose the challenge? Then I will still be standing where I am now. Beside me? If you allow it. Before she could answer, someone knocked on the door. Isolde Marin stood in the corridor. Her ceremonial confidence was gone. In her hand was a sealed private agreement. Cassian had promised to marry her after receiving permanent Valemont authority. In exchange, Chancellor Marin would appoint him to the Academy Executive Board. But another clause gave Cassian control of Isolde's foundation and allowed him to remove her after the marriage if she became politically unsuitable. "He told me you were unstable," Isolde said. "He said you attacked him because you could not accept losing power." Elara said nothing. Isolde looked toward the cold radiator and the scholarship student rooms beyond it. "I did not know where the foundation money came from." "You did not ask," Elara said. The words hurt Isolde. They were supposed to. After a moment, Isolde nodded. "No, I did not." She handed Elara the agreement. Then she placed a second object on the desk, the missing founder's registration ledger. I took it from my father's office. Elara stared at her. "Why?" "Because Cassian made the same mistake with both of us." "What mistake?" "He believed humiliation would make us protect him, rather than admit we had been deceived." Isolde turned to leave. Elara stopped her. "Testify tomorrow." "My father will destroy me." "No," Elara said. "He will try." Isolde looked back. For the first time, neither woman saw the other as a rival, only as someone Cassian had expected to remain silent. The final ceremony began beneath the portraits of Blackthorn Crown's founders. Cassian stood on the raised platform, wearing the silver Valemont crest Isolde's. Place beside him remained empty, Chancellor. Marin sat above the council in dark, ceremonial robes. The oath glass stood behind the charter platform, its surface black and silent. Elara entered without a crest, sash, or title. Students turned as she walked down the central aisle alone. Lucian sat in the audience under disciplinary restriction. He could not address the council unless called. Cassian watched Elara approach. For one moment, doubt crossed his face, then it disappeared. Chancellor Marin lifted the original charter. "Cassian Rowe has requested recognition as acting guardian of the Valemont Academy. Authority." Cassian placed one hand on the document. The Chancellor began reading the modern guardians. "Pledge." Elara stepped forward. "I invoke the Founder's challenge." The room erupted in whispers. Chancellor Marin struck the table. "That procedure is obsolete." The Academy archivist rose slowly from the witness bench. "No founders. Statute has ever repealed it." Marin turned toward him. The archivist's voice trembled, but he continued. "The challenge remains valid." Cassian looked at Elara. "If you proceed and the mirror accepts my oath, your family loses every claim to these seats." "I know. You would destroy your own inheritance to accuse me?" Elara looked around the hall, at the scholarship students seated near the rear, at the council members who had remained silent, at the crest Cassian had taken from her. "No," she said. "I am risking my inheritance to discover whether it deserves to survive." The archivist opened the Founder's Rulebook. Cassian had no legal path left except refusal, and refusal would look like confession. He placed his hand back on the charter. The oath glass remained black. The archivist, "Read the first line. Do you swear that the Valemont authority was entrusted to you, freely and without deception?" Cassian looked toward Chancellor Marin, then toward Elara. "I swear." A thin silver line appeared across the mirror. The sound that followed came from Cassian's own voice, but his lips did not move. "She trusted me with 3 pages. I created the 4th. The entire hall became silent. Cassian stepped away from the charter. "That is not proof." "No," Elara said. It is motive. She placed the founder's registration ledger on the council desk. The archivist opened it to the recorded authorization, 3 pages courier permission only. The seal sequence listed in the ledger matched. The first 3 pages Cassian had presented. The 4th page carried no registered seal. Cassian's face changed. Chancellor Marin rose. This ledger was stolen. Isolde entered Founders Hall. From your private office, she said. Every student turned. She walked to the witness platform and placed Cassian's private marriage agreement beside the ledger. My father removed the academy records after learning Elara had found them. Cassian promised me a marriage, an executive position, and control of the Valemont seats. He also wrote himself the power to remove me once I was no longer useful. Cassian reached for her. Isolde, listen to me. She stepped back. You told Elara people remain loyal to whoever is useful. Cassian froze. Isolde's eyes filled, but her voice remained steady. You should have remembered that you were never useful without something stolen from one of us. The archivist continued the oath. Do you swear that you used none of this authority for personal gain? Cassian remained silent. Elara looked at him. Repeat it. His jaw tightened. If I refuse, then everyone here will know why. Cassian stared at the black mirror. Then he forced out the words. I swear. The oath glass turned silver. His hidden intention filled the hall. I used the Valemont name to buy Marin's support. I used Isolde to secure his office. Once I controlled both families, neither woman could remove me. Students rose from their seats. Chancellor Marin ordered the mirror covered. Lucian stood. Under the Founder's challenge, interference removes the presiding officer from the dispute. Marin pointed toward him. You are suspended. The archivist closed the rulebook. He is correct. For the first time, Chancellor Marin had no authority over the room. Elara placed copies of the financial transfers across the council table. The original records showed that Cassian had redirected money from the Eastern Residence repairs, meal grants, and student support fund into Isolde's leadership foundation. Cassian turned toward Elara. You think exposing me makes you powerful again? No. She looked at the cold faces of the council members who had abandoned her. Exposing you only removes the man who stole my power. Then she faced the students. What I do with it next determines whether I deserve it. The council invalidated Cassian's claim. Chancellor Marin was suspended. Pending a financial investigation, Isolde agreed to testify against him and withdrew from the leadership foundation until every stolen grant had been restored. Cassian lost his prefect rank, academy sponsorship, advisory position, and all authority connected to the Valemont name. An administrator approached him in Founders Hall. First, she removed the council pin, then the ceremonial sash, finally, the silver Valemont crest. Cassian stood beneath the founder portraits while every borrowed symbol of power disappeared from his uniform. Without Elara's name, Isolde's father, or the Academy's silence, he had nothing left that he had earned himself. The council offered to restore all 3 Valemont seats to Elara, immediately. She looked toward the Eastern resident students, then toward the permanent chairs her family had controlled for generations. My family created these seats when Blackthorn Crown educated. Fewer than 100 aristocratic heirs, she said. Today, students from every background study here, yet most of them can lose their housing, grants, or voice, because one family decides they are not important enough to hear. Several founding heirs shifted uncomfortably. Elara continued. Cassian exploited this academy because power was concentrated enough to steal She placed her hand on one Valemont chair. 1. Seat will remain with my family under the Founders' Charter. Then she stepped away from the other 2. The second will be elected by the student body. Whispers spread through the hall. The third will belong to a graduate selected for public service. Regardless of family name, her grandfather would be furious. The old council would resist. But after Cassian's exposure, no member wanted to defend inherited control in front of the entire academy. The reform passed, not unanimously, but publicly, and that was enough. Several weeks later, the heating returned to the eastern dormitory. The frozen meal grants were restored. 2 new banners were raised beside the old Valemont symbol above the library. One represented the elected student seat. The other represented service. Lucian ran for the student position. He refused Elara's endorsement. You could have won by a landslide, she told him when they met in the conservatory. I wanted the seat without borrowing your name. You won by 11 votes. 12, according to my mother. Your mother does not attend this academy. She remains confident. Elara smiled. It was the first smile that felt entirely like her own since the engagement ceremony. Lucian sat beside her on the iron bench. From his pocket, he removed the broken clasp from the silver crest Cassian had worn. I thought you might want this returned. Elara studied the metal. Once, the crest had meant identity, inheritance, and certainty. Then Cassian had worn it, and she had learned that a symbol was only as honorable as the person carrying it. She closed Lucien's fingers around the clasp. No. What should I do with it? Melt it. And make what? Something that has never belonged to anyone else. Months later, on graduation day, Lucian found Elara on the academy balcony, overlooking the mountain courtyard. He placed a small silver pendant in her hand. It was shaped like an open door. No crest. No family. Motto. No promise of ownership. Elara traced its edge with her thumb. Does this mean we are officially allies? Lucian looked at her. I was hoping for something less political. She kissed him before he could finish. Not because he had saved her. He had not. Not because she owed him, she did not. She kissed him because when she had possessed nothing he could use, he had remained beside her anyway. Below them, students crossed the courtyard beneath 3 banners. The old Valemont silver. The elected council banner, the symbol of service Elara had entered. Blackthorn Crown, believing her family name guaranteed her future. Cassian taught her how quickly inherited power could be stolen. Lucienne taught her that love without ownership was possible. And when Elara finally reclaimed the authority Cassian had taken, she did not rebuild the world that had betrayed her. She opened the door to a different one,